بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيد الأولين والآخرين والشفيع المذنبين ورحمة للعالمين أبو القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيت طيبين طاهرين وَلَعْنَةُ أَعْدَائِهِمْ أَجْمَعِينَ إِلَّا يَوْمِ الدِّينِ. In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful, all praise is due to Him. And may peace and blessings be upon His Prophet, the seal of all messengers, the mercy unto mankind, and the Redeemer or the intercessor on the Day of Judgment. And may peace and blessings be upon His pure and immaculate family. Please recite a loud salawat. Please recite one more salawat for Imam Sahib al-Zaman. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alam ahad ilaykum ya bani Adam an la ta'budu ash-shaytan innahu lakum aduun mubin. This ayah in the Quran is in Surah Yasin, and there's an ayah after it, and this ayah is about servitude, which I'll get to in a moment. But this particular ayah in Quran introduces this concept of servitude to us. Alam ahad ilaykum ya bani Adam, in the form of a question. That's the question that I want us to all ask during this retreat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us, did I not take a promise from you, a covenant from you, an ahd from you, Bani Adam? A promise, a covenant. Allah is asking us, He's calling us on His promise. Very similar to what we do in this dunya. When somebody promises us something, we always say when we're kids, you promised. Except this is a serious promise mentioned in Quran. And before we even violate the promise, Allah reminds us of it gently, kindly. Did I not take a promise from you, Bani Adam, children of Adam? An la ta'budu shaytan, that you would not serve shaytan. You would not have obedience to shaytan. Innahu lakum aduun mubin. Don't you know, surely? He's clearly your enemy. He's manifestly your enemy. He's openly your enemy. It's very clear. Just a very simple reminder. Similar in life to when we remind people of a promise and we tell them, don't you see? You're breaking your promise. It's clear. Now, the topic of this conference is leading a balanced life, Mizan, a balanced life of servitude. So there's two topics in this one topic. And this may be the reason why we need 4 days to discover all of these things. Now, I'm using the word discover here because during this retreat, as Justin mentioned, this Al-Hujjah has gone on for maybe 8 or 9 years. 9 years. And my observation during these retreats is that we tend to come to the retreats and listen to the messages in the retreats, get inspired by these messages, feel that we're connecting with people, and then leave the retreat. And then many of the messages that happen in these retreats get disconnected from us. And I'm going to talk about that as well later, but I want you to keep that in mind. What you hear at these retreats, the best thing that I can advise everyone here is that take notice of what the speakers say in a way that even if you think you've heard it before, you haven't. Open your heart to maybe there's something in the speaker's sentence, especially if they're speaking on behalf of Ahlul Bayt. There's something in that sentence that would give you insight into your life. There's something in what they say that would change your life at this retreat. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us about this promise, about this ahd. Now, where did this ahd take place? Where did this promise take place? This promise took place not in a place that we remember. This ahd that we took was in a place called Alam al-Dhar, in the world of particles, a place that we can't comprehend with our minds, we don't understand, we don't even remember we took this oath, this ahd. And Quran and Hadith speak about many other ahd that we took in those places. But Allah reminds us in this very beautiful ayah that we have been making covenants and we have been making promises to Him far before we came to this dunya, which tells us something very simple, that this dunya is also not the final place of movement. Allah reminds us of a place that we were before this. We left that place. We took promises in that place. We had some type of consciousness in that place. And now we're here. And now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, okay, remember, you took this covenant. Did I not take from you this covenant? Now, obviously we don't remember it, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran is reminding us because we don't have memory of this. And that covenant was of servitude. To serve Him and not to serve shaitan. Now there are two messages in this ayah. The rest of the ayah says, وَأَنِعْبُدُونِي هَذَا صِرَاطٌ مُسْتَقِيمٌ. Did I not take a covenant from you that you would not worship shaitan? He's clearly your enemy. And also, I took a covenant from you. I took a promise from you. I took an oath from you, Bani Adam. وَأَنِعْبُدُونِي, that you would serve me. Not me. Metaphorically. Him. He says that you would serve me. You also took that oath. And don't you know something else, Bani Adam? هَذَا صِرَاطٌ مُسْتَقِيمٌ. That is the straightest path. Serving me is the straightest path. It is the most balanced path. It is the Mizan. Now, when we think in our society about a balanced life, we have this saying. We live in a secular society, and in this society, you'll hear this saying many times, especially if you're in the workplace. They'll say you always have to have a work-life balance. Well, there's two things. There's work, and then there's life. And life that people are speaking about is that what they're trying to say is that you have to work, but don't work too hard. Because you have life. You have to spend time with yourself, and you have to have fun, and you have to do things like that. Spend time maybe with family, or if you don't have a family, just do whatever you need to do. It's just these two things. And whatever life is to you, just do that other thing. But don't spend too much time in work. Now, nothing is mentioned in that life about servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing is mentioned in that life about how we balance that life with our relationship with Him. It's just mentioned that you have work, which is one of the most important things, and you have life, whatever that life is. And that idiom is so ingrained in us that we start repeating it. We start saying that, yes, I have work and I have life, and life is just that. And as a Muslim, I incorporate salat and fasting and all of those things within that life. Now, before we get to that, the beginning of this ayah, we know that that paradigm or that saying is incorrect. But this ayah in Quran establishes what we should do. The first thing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says is that I'm reminding you that you should not serve shaitan. Now, we know that in society we don't go out, there's nobody, well, most people don't go out and do sujood to shaitan. Okay? Most people in this society don't even go out and do sujood to an idol. Now, in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Can I get some water? In the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, during the end of his mission, it was said that when he conquered Mecca, he went to Mecca and Imam Ali alayhi salam, thank you. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Imam Ali alayhi salam, he took Imam Ali alayhi salam with him, and it said that he knocked down the idols that were at the Kaaba. Now after that, after the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam doing this, there was an ayah revealed about Ghadir. And I want you to take notice of this idol. The ayah says, Ya ayyuha, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Ya ayyuha Rasul, baligh ma unzila ilayka min Rabbik, wa in lam taf'al fama balagta risala. Wallahu yahsimuka minan nas. Inna Allah la yahdi al-qawm al-kafirin. It says to the Prophet, O Prophet, reveal what has been revealed to you, and if you do not, it would be as if you have not revealed any message at all. Now we know this was related to Ghadir. And I know you all know the story of Ghadir, but I want to talk about that simple sentence right after it, which is very important. Wallahu yahsimuka minan nas. But O Prophet, Allah will protect you from the evil and the plots of people. Now this was a strange warning for us, for the Muslim Ummah. The Prophet had knocked down idols, but yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was telling him now that you don't have danger outside of you. There are no idols more to knock down. There are no more physical idols to break. You don't have to break those idols anymore. But there is something else you have to worry about. And that is from amongst you, there are people who are plotting. They're planning. They're devising. They're scheming. Now that entire territory around the Prophet, that entire area had become Muslim. People had come to the Prophet in droves, and they had, in droves literally, and given their bay'ah or their allegiance to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was warning him that people from amongst him may reject him. Although people from amongst him were Muslim, but there were idols still within people. And then the ayah ends off with, Inna Allah la yahdi al-qawm al-kafirin. That surely Allah will not guide those who reject this message. Now, why did I bring up this ayah? This ayah is, we use this ayah to talk about those who rejected Ghadir. We constantly mention it. We've all heard it. But there's a very important lesson in this ayah, even for those who accept Ghadir, even those who give their bay'ah to Imam Ali, even for those who love Imam Ali alayhi salam. And it is this, that we can become Muslim, we can accept faith, but there still can be things within us that can cause us to reject this message. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives this warning to those people. Now, those people completely rejected the message. And I'm not saying that in any way that any of us here are like them. They completely rejected this message. Now, these idols that the Prophet knocked down when he conquered Mecca, when he took over Mecca, those idols don't exist today. But there are idols that exist today. And when we look around us, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about shirk, and He talks about polytheism, we see that shaitan attracts us with idols. They're not the idols made of wood. They're not the idols made of stone. You see, these type of idols are very important. These type of idols aren't material. If we look in the Quran, at every single prophet came to destroy two types of idols. The first type of idol was the one made of material. Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam warned his people, why are you worshipping an idol made of material, of wood? Why are you worshipping the sun, the stars, the sky? Prophet Musa alayhi salam spoke to people and said, why are you worshipping a human being? Which was Fir'aun. Now all of these prophets, including our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, after they broke these idols, and they traveled far away from these idols, the idols that still existed were these idols that were not material. And this was the danger for every single ummah of every single prophet. May peace be upon them. When Prophet Musa alayhi salam took Bani Israel across the sea and into the desert, well, they actually built another idol, but they went back to that, but that's a different story. But the idolatry that they were still following was the idolatry of the self. It was fighting amongst each other. It was jealousy. It was abandoning the faith. It was doubt. It was shak. The idol of shak. Now, even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had opened the sea for Musa and Bani Israel, they come across the sea. Now remember the story. Musa comes to Fir'aun with a stick. Just with a stick. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's an amazing story. It's a beautiful story. Musa says to Allah, I want you to think about this concept of shak. Not that the prophets alayhim salam have a type of shak like we do. We have real shak, doubt in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Musa asks Allah, he says, Allah, if I go to this tyrant, if I go to Fir'aun, these people might not believe me. He might reject me. This mission may not be successful. And Allah says, go. You go with yourself. You go with your brother. I am sending both of you. And take that stick that you have. Go. With that stick, you will bring down the kingdom of Pharaoh. Just go. Have faith. He goes to Pharaoh. Musa alayhi salam goes to Pharaoh. And there were a number of signs. There were the locusts, and there was the Nile turning to blood. There were all these different signs. The 9 signs that came with Musa alayhi salam. And every time a sign came, the people that were there, they said to Musa alayhi salam, they said, if you remove this sign, this punishment from God, we'll believe in you. We'll believe. So Musa alayhi salam very kindly said, okay. He asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah removed this sign. And then they went back to disbelief. Finally, Musa alayhi salam takes Bani Israel across the desert into another land. And when he takes them across the desert, now imagine, I don't know about you, but if I saw an ocean come apart like that and I walked through it, I would be a very staunch believer, I think. I hope. But even when they crossed this, they rejected their prophet. And they doubted their prophet even after this. And all along the way, their prophet told them, have patience. You will see that if you have patience, Allah will reward you. Allah will show you. But you have to go forward. Shaitan will come to you. Shaitan will tempt you. But you have to go forward. There's a story in the Quran where Musa alayhi salam comes to a city and Musa tells his followers, he says that we need to go into the city to conquer the city. And Bani Israel say, I think that you and your Lord should go into this city. You go first and then once the city's conquered, we'll come with you. We'll follow you. Let's see the result of what happens and then we will follow you. And shak, doubt, persisted them and persisted them and persisted them and persisted them and persisted them. Now doubt is something that's talked about in Quran over and over and over again. And I know you're wondering why I'm going now into doubt. I started with al-Mizan and I went to shaitan and now I'm at doubt. Because all of these things are related. Shaitan will tempt us with doubt. And he will create idols for us. But they're not the idols that we necessarily always read in the Quran. And sometimes when we focus on the Quran, we focus on those idols, those brick idols and those stone idols, and we say, this is a nice story, but I don't really connect with it. This was a prophet that lived a long time ago. He broke some idols, and then his people followed him. But some of the greatest stories in the Quran are the challenges the Prophet had with their different ummah to break these idols that were within people. Because shaitan consistently visited all of these different ummahs of all of these different prophets and tempted them with the idol of self-conceit, with the idol of individualism, with the idol of appeasement to society, to such a point that Quran keeps talking about this and keeps talking about this, that once you've accepted Islam, now you have an even greater challenge, because to destroy these idols are within us. To break them requires to recognize them. And that's a very difficult thing. Please recite a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I don't have a watch, so somebody please remind me when my time is getting. I have 5 minutes. Wow. I don't know how I'm going to get through this speech. I'm just on Musa alayhi salam. I have to get to our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, I'll try to be brief. Now doubt, shak, and shaitan will plant this doubt and shak in us. I want to talk to you about that doubt and that shak, because that is one of the things that I've seen over the years that plagues our communities. And I see this story mentioned in Quran over and over and over again. And the funny thing is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always speaks to us in Quran. Okay? When I mean He speaks to us, I mean He speaks to us. Directly to us when we're reading it. Not to just a group. He's speaking to our heart. And He reminds us, have patience. He reminds us, rely on me. He reminds us, have faith. He reminds us, don't look at the glamour and the glitter. Just have patience, you will see. Everything that I'm saying to you, He says, will be proven true. You just have to have that faith and that tawakkul and that patience. But if you give in to doubt, if you just give in to doubt, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you will stray. Then this, Allah says, هَذَا صِرَاطٌ مُسْتَقِيمٌ, that this is the straight path. It's clear it's the straight path. That you will stray off of this path. Now, I want to ask you guys in here, how many of you have seen people who were religious and you've known them for a very long time and now they're not religious? They just have given up their faith. They've publicly given up their faith. How many? I want to get a show of hands. So that was about 75% of the room. The other maybe 25% maybe didn't want to answer. Okay, 75%. Okay? They were religious. They believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some of them may even have come to this retreat over those 9 years. Some of them now have taken off their hijab. Some of them now have just changed their lifestyle completely. Something that's very important to recognize is that when we talk about servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a lifestyle. It's something that we live. It's not a matter of that just we pray or we fast, but it's something that we make a pledge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we go back to Him and make that pledge. Just like in Alam al-Dhar. If we look at all the supplications of the Imams, it's about this pledge. In this retreat, you will hear some of the supplications of Imam Sajjad. Just when the person's reciting it in that beautiful Arabic, if you don't understand the Arabic, just look at the words in English. Examine them. Let them soak in. Think of the pledge that the Imam is making to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Focus on that pledge. Okay. Now, I'm going to end my speech with a hadith on a good note. And before I give this hadith of the Prophet, please recite aloud Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad for me. There is a hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, and he says that a person's faith, he says, give me one more salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. He says that a person's faith has 3 qualities, which if present in that person, that will allow him to taste faith. And this is very important, this word that the Imams are using, to taste faith. It's not just about listening, it's not just about taking information, it's not just about memorizing data, it's not about that. Okay? There's a reason Imam Sajjad alayhi salam worked on people's hearts before Imam Sadiq alayhi salam came and worked on people's minds and filled their minds. it would have been useless to fill their minds with knowledge if their hearts were dirty. There were six people after Karbala. 6 or 7, some historians. It was a very small number of people that were very dedicated to Ahlul Bayt. 6 or 7. And Imams of Ahlul Bayt built their hearts up. So the Prophet says 3 qualities which, when present in a person, enable him to savor the taste of faith. 1, that nothing is more beloved to the person than Allah. This is the first thing. Then Allah and His Messenger. So this is about Iman, and Iman leads to Ubudiyyah or servitude. Okay, and to get Iman, we also need to do Ubudiyyah or servitude. The first ingredient to this is to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the ways that we find out if we love Him is to ask ourselves a simple question: what do we think about the most? This is a very hard thing, because we think about all types of things in this dunya. We have family and friends and this and that and things to do and lists and all of these things. But what do we think about the most? This will give us a simple prescription. Just in our free time. Let's just take work out of it. Let's take our daily activity, our things that we have to do. Just ask ourselves, in the time we have free, what do we think about the most? This will give us an indication, an arrow of what we love the most. Whatever we think about the most. Some of us think about Facebook and what we're going to surf on there. Some of us think about the internet. Some of us think about movies. Some of us think about cars. Some of us think about fashion. Some of us think about purses. Some of us think about clothes, whatever it is. Some of us think about women. Some of us think about men, whatever it is. What do we think about the most? 2, that to be burned in the fire is more beloved to the person than to denounce his or her religion. That no matter what, a person would have the faith that they would never denounce their religion or put their religion down. This is the second thing. Third thing, which is very important, and that the person loves for the sake of Allah, and they have disdain or dislike for the sake of Allah. The word here is bughz, actually in Arabic. But I can't say hate, because in this society, if you say hate, everyone gets upset, and they say, that's a bad word, you can't. But this is to love for the sake of Allah and to dislike for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If there's something in society that Allah loves, bend our opinion to what He loves. You're going to hear many workshops in here about many different controversial issues here. Some of the workshops I saw, some of them are about homosexuality, some of them are about women's rights, some of them are this, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. None of these issues matter. The Mizan that we have, the Mizan ultimately that we have, is that we conform our opinions and we open our heart to whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves. If we do that, then we stay on Sirat al-Mustaqim. If we follow society and what society loves, an la ta'budu wa shaytan, then we go down that path of shaitan. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us love of Him. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to open our hearts, to allow us to love what He loves, to allow us to dislike what He likes. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us love of His Messenger, to give us love of Ahlul Bayt. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep our faith firm, to keep it strong. Even if that path is with little people, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us strong enough that no matter what happens, that we would rather suffer than give up our faith. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the return of Al-Hujjah, to this world in our lifetime. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.